Bhutanam Pranibhyo Vaishnavibhyo Namaha. We are very fortunate and happy this morning to have the radiant-faced Vamsivadan Prabhu with us. We're going to actually discuss some quite serious topic. You will be speaking on enviousness, is it?
Yes.
Yes. So this is a disease which eats the heart of the devotee and prevents us from having proper relationships with the Vaishnavas and attaining the lotus feet of Krishna. So usually we speak of positive qualities that help us get close to Krishna. In this case here, we are going to explore a quality that stops us from attaining Krishna. And obviously, if we can overcome that quality, then we can have brighter days on our path back to Godhead. So please go ahead, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna. With your blessings, we'll try to speak something.
Hare Krishna.
Om Jnana-timirandasya Jnananjana-shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Caitanya Manobishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitamscha Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swamin Nitinamane Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Namo Mahavadanyaya Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namne Gauratushe Namaha. He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vancha Kalpa Tarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shrivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Krishna. So we welcome all the students for this morning session on enviousness. So who's the host?
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
I'm hosting here.
Okay. So, so is it okay to do some interactive group exercises and things like that?
Like, how do you mean? What kind of arrangement would it be?
No, so usually there's a facility for breakout rooms and things, so that's possible?
That's possible, yes. But to remember that we are also on YouTube live, so we cannot go to the separate breakout rooms.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Yes.
But some interaction is possible, right?
Yes, of course.
Okay, fine. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. So one of the main causes for our material existence is envy. As Lord Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, 7th chapter, 27th verse, Ichha dvesha samuttena dvandva mohena bharata. So the cause of material existence is Ichha and dvesha. So Ichha is desire to enjoy independent of the Lord, to become independent controllers, enjoyers, and dvesha, that is envy, And so when one envies the Supreme Lord and one thinks, why only Krishna is the enjoyer? Why I cannot be the enjoyer? Why I cannot be the controller? So that's envy. And because of that envy, the result is Dvandva Mohena Bharat. So the result of this Ichcha and Dvesha is one is put into moha, that is illusion. The illusion is to misidentify with the body. And when one misidentifies with the material body, then the consequence of that is Dvandva. That is, one is affected by the dualities of material existence. Srila Prabhupada, in the purport to this verse of the Bhagavad Gita, writes, the real constitutional position of the living entity is that of subordination to the Supreme Lord, who is pure knowledge. When one is deluded into separation from this pure knowledge, he becomes controlled by the illusory energy and cannot understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The illusory energy is manifested in the duality of desire and hate. Due to desire and hate, the ignorant person wants to become one with the Supreme Lord and envies Krishna as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Okay, so originally our constitutional position is subordination to the Supreme Lord, to be the enjoyed and be the controlled, and not be independent enjoyers and controllers. So that's our constitutional position. But when one desires, when one develops that desire to enjoy independent of the Supreme Lord, one comes under the influence of the illusory energy. And as a result of the influence of the illusory energy, then one is put into illusion. Then there are dualities like honor and dishonor, misery, happiness, woman, man, good, bad, pleasure, pain. So these are the dualities of delusion. And so one basically falls into the trap of the bodily misconception of life and continues in material existence because of this envy. And this envy is so deep-rooted because it has been there with us since time immemorial in the material world. And so therefore, material existence is essentially because of this envy towards the Supreme Lord. And because the conditioning is so deep-rooted, even when one comes to devotional service, it is difficult to get rid of this envy immediately. And then the envy contaminates our practices of devotional service and results in serious obstacles in our practices and in our progress of devotional service. So therefore, it is very important for us to carefully understand why we are affected by this disease of envy. And as practicing devotees, as we are practicing devotional service, what could be some of the symptoms by which we can recognize this envy? What will be the consequences of envy? And we find that the Shastras, both the Srimad Bhagavatam and Caitanya Charitamrita, are filled with examples, so many examples of both materialists and even devotees falling victim to this disease of envy, resulting in serious consequences. And then finally, it is important for one to know what is the cure, what is the remedy for this disease. Otherwise, what's the point in only knowing about the disease if one doesn't understand what's the remedy? So we will try to discuss the topic under these various headings. And we definitely would like to keep the whole discussion interactive. And as I've been told, all of you are Bhakti Vaibhav and Bhakti Vedanta students. So definitely you already have a lot of knowledge and realization on the subject matter. And so we would like to take advantage of your association and your realizations on this topic, so that I myself, who am also very much diseased, can benefit from the discussions. Okay, so with this, let us begin to discuss what are some of the causes of being affected by envy, even as we are practicing a devotional service. Okay, so let's invite some responses from the students. What do you think are some of the reasons why envy develops as we are practicing devotional service? Yes, any responses, please? Okay, Sita Rani.
Krishna Prabhu, according to me, the prime reason for envy is pride. People think that they are better than others or they deserve better. That is what results in envy.
Okay, fine. So, so you're saying it's basically pride. Okay, good. Somebody else would like to contribute?
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Yes.
Prabhuji, like sometimes with inferiority also people feel envious about others.
So that means I feel that I'm inferior to somebody else, or somebody is superior to me, and therefore I become envious of that person.
Yes, yes, Prabhuji. Sometimes.
Okay, that's a good point. Yes, Dalita Pritima.
Hare Krishna Prabhu.
Hare.
And when we are desirous of something material, things like puja, labha, pratishtha. So like, for example, if we like to have fame and we are famous for something, and when we feel some other devotee to be a competitor to us, then naturally we feel envious that person.
Okay, good point. Yes, anybody else? Okay, now Kishore Govind.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, Dandavad Pranam.
Dandavad.
False identification to the body, that seeing that I am the enjoyer and all the others to be enjoyed, but it is the other side.
Right. Okay, that's a fundamental cause for envy. That's correct. And Jagannathan Pandit Prabhu?
Yeah, Prabhuji, sometimes we feel envious because of our own incapability or defects. So we feel envy of others because we are not sufficiently enthusiastic or doing the something.
So what happens because of our own incapabilities? What's the consequence of that? How does it affect us?
It affects our consciousness that we are envious that other people are going ahead, and I'm not. But one is not realizing that he is incapable. Because of that, these feelings are created. But it is a cause of envy because one is not sufficiently efficient.
Right. Okay, good. Thank you for that point. Yes, Namrata Agrawal.
Yes, Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. So, Prabhuji, actually, basically, it's maybe because we have envy with Krishna that results in enviousness with the people around us. That is a symptom we can see, because unless we stop envy with anyone, that means we still have envy with Krishna, and with the nature to lord over the nature and everything that is still there. The Ishvara Prakriti that we have, that we want to lord it over nature. Because of that, that enviousness comes over.
Okay, good, very good point. Yes, envy with Krishna, that's a root cause. Yes, Pulasthimani Prabhu, and then we'll take Radha Krishna.
Hare Krishna Prabhu. Well, in a way, we were born with that envy. The fact that we came into this material world is because we felt like we were competitors. So we are somehow affected, although we are trying to upgrade ourselves. you know, by practicing Krishna consciousness, the kind of that kind of mentality is still lingering there. So we need to kind of learn how to, you know, uproot it from our being.
Right. Okay, good points. Yes, and Radha Krishna Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, Dandavata Pranam. Policy Moni Prabhu already covered, I think, what is that? Yeah, we are already used to in the material life, in the working corporates and companies where the competition is always there to do things. So that is continuing in our, as a habit, and that one still continuing in the spiritual life also, which we're supposed to upgrade ourselves as Prabhu is telling. So that is not happened. So, yeah.
Okay, good points. Thank you. So yes, so these are some of the reasons why the envy continues in the present condition of life. Even as devotees, we struggle with this envy because of these reasons. Srila Prabhupada writes in the purport to the Srimad Bhagavatam, first canto, first chapter, verse 2. Dharma projita kaitava atra dharma paramo nirmatsaranam satam. In the purport to that verse, Srila Prabhupada writes that in this material worlds, there is competition between everyone. Why? Because there is envy. There's envy between one living entity and another. So practically, Srila Prabhupada says, in this material worlds, everyone is envious of everyone else. That's the nature of this material worlds. And basically, as we have discussed, the root cause is the envy towards Krishna. So Srila Prabhupada explains, when we are envious towards anyone in this world, it is basically an exhibition of that root cause, that's envy towards Krishna. And so that envy towards Krishna manifests as envy towards other living entities of this world. And so therefore, when we are basically trying to enjoy like Krishna, then, and we see somebody else who is enjoying better than me, who has something better than me, then immediately envy comes up. So as some of you have mentioned, so our own material attachments, our material desires, it could be desire for some material things, it could be desire for name and fame, so both gross and subtle. So when we have these desires, which is basically a desire of competing with Krishna, to be the enjoyer, to be the proprietor, to be the controller. And so when we see somebody else having something which I don't have, which I lack, or as somebody said, some incapabilities, somebody is feeling some inferiority complex, I have something less, somebody has something more, then immediately the envy comes up. Why that person has been given something more than what I have? Actually, I should be having it. And immediately there is envy. So in this connection, Srila Prabhupada tells two stories from the Hitopadesh and Panchatantra. So he tells that how once there was a dog, and the dog had found a bone to eat, and the dog was very happy. But as the dog was going, then he happened to go across a bridge on a river. And so as he was standing on the bridge of the river, he saw his reflection in the water. And he's a dog, after all. So when he saw his reflection, what did he think? He thought, here is another dog with a bone. Why is he having? that is also meant for my enjoyment. That bone is also meant for my enjoyment. Why is he having? And immediately the dog opened his mouth, started barking to attack the other dog. And in the process, he lost his own bone. Right. So that's envy. We see somebody else having something and we think, why is that person having? And Srila Prabhupada tells another story of rabbits. And so he tells how in the jungle there was the lion, and the lion was, because that's his food, he would attack the animals, the smaller animals, and eat them. And so all the animals of the forest were so afraid of this lion. And so all the animals had a meeting and they came upon a solution. And they thought, okay, so rather than the lion just coming and attacking anytime and eating, we ourselves will voluntarily go and become food for the lion in turns every day. So they all agreed. And so one day it was the turn of a rabbit. And the rabbit was going, but then he went slightly late. And so when he reached the lion was very angry because he was very hungry. It said, a hungry man is an angry man. So when somebody is hungry and he's kept waiting for his food, he gets angry. I think so we all have that experience. So the lion was very upset. And as soon as the rabbit came, he started chastising the rabbit. Why are you late? I've been waiting for you. So the rabbit said, what can I do? On the way, there was another lion. And that lion was going to eat me. But I told that lion that actually I'm meant for somebody else. So therefore, you cannot eat me. And so I told that lion that I have to take permission from the other lion. So let me go take permission and I'll come back to you. So the lion agreed. So when this lion heard that, he was so angry. He said, who is that lion to intercept you? Who is that lion who is trying to get my food? Take me to him. So the rabbit said, okay. And so the rabbit takes the lion to a well where he sees his own reflection. And then he thinks that that's another lion. And immediately he jumps into the well to attack the other lion and thus loses his life. In this way, we find in this world, whether it's animals, whether it's human beings, we find this cutthroat competition. So we hear this phrase, cutthroat competition. So the phrase is self-explanatory. That is, a person is ready to cut another person's throat if that other person stands as an obstacle to one's own enjoyments. Srila Prabhupada writes in a purport that the tendency to eat non-vegetarian food or to eat animals simply for the satisfaction of the tongue and the palate is also an exhibition of envy. So one thinks, why are the animals enjoying? They are meant for my enjoyment. And so this becomes the cause of envy. When one see somebody else having something which I don't have, somebody else is enjoying more than me, then one becomes envious. Just like many years back, we used to see this advertisement of the Onida television. Maybe some of you had seen, which said, owner's pride, neighbor's envy. So when anyone possesses something wonderful, immediately the neighbors, the other people tend to become envious. Similarly, whether it is things or whether it is reputation or fame, anything that one has, which one has even in less quantity, one tends to become envious. So the root cause, of course, is envy towards Krishna, which manifests in so many different ways in this world. Okay, so that's something regarding the causes of envy. So when one has envy, how does this manifest? So what are the symptoms of the presence of envy within our own consciousness? Okay, let's hear something from the students. What do you think are some of the symptoms of the presence of envy? Okay, so we definitely encourage all the students to participate. Others, we're seeing the same hands up again. Okay, in any case, Sitarani.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, we come to know that there's envy in our heart when when somebody is praised and it acts like knife in our heart, then we know that there's envy for that person.
Okay, so can't tolerate others' praise. Yes. Yes, Jagdanand Swami.
I'm Jagannath Swami Das Prabhuji here.
Yes.
Our anger shows Prabhuji, like, envy. Anger represent our envy.
Okay, so anger is a symptom of envy. Good. Prem Manjari.
Hi Krishna Prabhuji, Dandavat Pranam. When we are in some meeting and all and somebody is praised, then our mind stop working. Me. Where is me? Why is other person not mentioning my contribution, my things? Then we understand. But mine has totally gone out of this. Later we realize.
Yes, that's right. Good. Yes, Pavitra Prabhu.
Hare Krishna Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
Yeah, I think poverty also causes envy.
Excuse me?
Poverty.
We are discussing the symptoms of envy. What are the symptoms?
We are uncontrolled senses.
Uncontrolled senses. How is that a symptom of envy?
When you can't control the senses, you see other people enjoying nice food, you can get, and you think the person is more fortunate, and you are not fortunate to get that food.
Okay, that's a good point. Uncontrolled senses, yes, that's as a result of envy. Good. Leela Gondru?
Hare Krishna. One of the reason is one of the symptom also could be to harm others.
To
harm others.
To harm others. Okay. In what ways do people harm others?
Like when they are by seeing their progress or growth, if because of enviousness, I may cause danger to them.
Okay, that's correct. Yes, that's right. And now Kishore Govind Prabhu.
Hare Krishna Prabhu. It is when someone has a better facility for enjoyment or they get better empowered,
then it means more enviousness.
Okay, that's a cause, which is correct. We're at present discussing symptoms. So yes, so one cannot basically tolerate somebody else having something more, correct? Yes. Okay, Veerbhadra Prabhu.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, Dhanvat Pranam. When we start enjoying others' criticism,
we start enjoying others being criticized. Okay, that's an interesting point. Good. Fine. Yes, Lalita Pritima, you have something?
And Prabhu, we also try to find the fault with those people and try to pull them back.
Yes, finding faults, pulling them down. Yes. And I think so. We'll take one last one from Namratana.
Yes, Prabhuji, obviously it results in anger and frustration, but it also gives a rise to other 5 anarthas as well.
How?
Like obviously it would lead to anger and more greed to have things that others are possessing, and more attachment to appreciation, recognition, and all these things. So it would result in all other anarthas coming out more prominently.
Right. That's correct. Good. Okay, fine. So now, in order to substantiate these various symptoms of envy, and also to study what will be the consequences of envy, let us see some examples from the scriptures. So somebody would like to mention a few examples from the scriptures of envy, and how that envy manifested in that person, and what was the consequence of that.
Duryodhana.
Yes, okay, that's quite a prominent example of Duryodhana. And how did the envy manifest, and what was the consequence?
He was envious of Pandavas. He don't want to give inch of his possession to the Pandavas, because he want to rule. He want to become a king instead of Yudhishthir Maharaj. And consequences, we all know that he got. Even Krishna came in front of him, he could not recognize the Lord and didn't surrender to him, and ultimately he lamented and died miserably.
Okay, good. Thank you. That's an important contribution. Pulastamani Prabhu.
Yes, Gandhari, when she was jealous of Kunti, and because he had children before her, and as a result, she stroked her belly, and what happened was that instead of children, there was some ball of iron came out of her body, and they had to be and then the Kurus were born, and the whole history then afterwards that
Right. Okay. Thank you. Yes, Pavitra Prabhu.
Sisupal was very envious of Krishna when Krishna was chosen for the first worship ministry, just for sacrifice.
Yes.
He blasphemed Krishna up to 100 times, and Krishna could not forgive him.
Right, Shishupal, practically envy personified. Yes. And Lalita Pratima.
And Daksha Prajapati, he was envious of Lord Shiva, and he blasphemed him. Like, he couldn't tolerate the great position of Lord Shiva. He couldn't understand his Vaishnava qualities. So that enviousness manifested in him.
Right, yes. And Namratana?
Chitraketu and his wives, Prabhuji, they killed the only son that was born from the eldest queen out of enviousness, because they were neglected. And they actually poisoned and killed him, resulting in a lot of despair and suffering for the parents.
Yes, that's right. Radha Krishna.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, Dandapuna. Prabhuji, Karna also envious of Arjuna, and he has taken the side of Duryodhana and just to defeat Arjuna, and he did all sorts of bad things.
Right, right. Yes, that's correct. And Kasturi Mother? Kasturika.
Sorry. Hare Krishna Prabhu, sorry. Yeah, Dhruva, I was thinking of Suruchi, envious of Dhruva.
Right, yes. Dhruva, Suruchi, yes. And okay, why was she envious, and what was the result?
Yeah, she was envious because her son, like she's a second wife, but Uttama has to become the king, but Dhruva is in middle. And the consequence was Dhruva was hurt and Uttama was, and later Uttama was killed, and even she was killed in the forest fire.
Yes, yes, that's right. Thank you. Premanjari Mother.
Even in 9th canto, Kekai is also mentioned, she was envious of why Bharat is not becoming the king, Ram is becoming. Maybe it was instituted into her, but it was her envy also.
Yes, Kekai is very important example in the Ramayana. Can we have some examples from the Caitanya Charitamrita? There are so many examples.
Yes, Prabhuji. I think son-in-law of Sarvam Bhattacharya.
Okay. You know his name? Amogha, yes. Yes, what did he do and what happened?
Amogha.
Do you know what he did?
Food. He criticized that how can a sannyasi enjoy?
Right. Okay, fine. Okay, maybe we'll discuss that. Okay, yes, Siddharani.
Also, Gopal Chapal, I mean, he was envious of Shiva's Pandit because there was night kirtan taking place at his house and he was not allowed. So he kept all the paraphernalia for worshipping Devi outside his home.
And what was the consequence?
Leprosy. He was hit by leprosy in like 3 days, and he almost was about to die. He was in a pathetic condition.
Right. Yes. Yes. And okay, Namrata Mata.
Prabhuji, is it like Sachi Mata with Advaitacharya, because even her elder son was taken away, so she had that enviousness and she was not given the mercy from Lord Chaitanya because of that.
Yes. Yes, of course, it was not exactly envy, but she was a little upset. Yes, that's right.
Yeah. Insecure, maybe.
Right. Okay, Kasturi Kamal.
Prabhu, I was thinking about Ramachandra Khan as well as Gopal Chakravarti, who were against Haridas Thakur.
Yes.
And Gopal Chakravarti, he became leper. And I don't remember about Ramachandra Khan, what happened.
Okay, fine. Okay, fine. So many different examples we see in the Shastras about envy. Filled both the Bhagavatam and the Caitanya Charitamrita with so many examples. And so, essentially, we see that the root cause of envy is always that somebody else has something more than me, and then one burns with envy. So there's one verse in the Srimad Bhagavatam in the 5th canto. This is in the prayers of the residents of Jambudvip. So in one of the verses it comes, Matsara Jvara. The envy is compared to a fever. So just like when a person has fever. So what happens when a person has fever? If I have fever, then who suffers from the fever? I suffer. I have to suffer the symptoms of the fever, the consequences of the fever. It is I who suffer. Though we may be intending to harm the person I envy, And of course, one could even try and harm the person. One could even harm the person. But we always have to remember that ultimately it is I who suffer. The example is given of a person who has envy. He's so angry at the person he's envious of, and he's holding a burning hot coal to throw at the person. He's angry. But in the meantime, as he's holding the burning hot coal, what is happening? He's burning his own hands. That's what's happening. And so therefore, the important point is that envy is actually self-destructive. So we will just elaborate on a few of these examples from the scriptures. So just like we have the famous example of Gopal in the Caitanya Charitamrita. So why was Gopal envious? So he was envious because he could not tolerate the prestige, the fame of Srivas Thakur. He was thinking, why the Srivas Thakur? He has the Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in his house, performing kirtans day and night, and these people are just having kirtan, they're enjoying, they're not doing any other work. That's the reason he became envious. He could not tolerate the Vaishnavas having kirtan and happy, serving the Lord. So one fails to tolerate somebody else being happy and serving the Lord. And what did he do? So when one is envious of somebody else, one thinks how to bring down his reputation, how to pull him down, reduce his fame, reduce his prestige, which he's enjoying, which is actually meant for me. So the symptom of envy is one tries to drag another person down. The example is sometimes given that envy is like crab-like mentality. It is said, just if there's a basket of crabs, there is no need to put a lid on that. Because if any one of those crabs tries to move out of the basket, the other crabs pull him down. That's what happens. And so the envy manifests in that attempt to pull the other person down. The envy manifests as criticism, fault finding, blasphemy. So these are all different ways in which one tends to pull the other person down because of envy. And therefore, it is said that when one finds faults with another person, one must ask oneself this question: why am I finding faults? Usually, the mind and the false ego, of course, manifests through the mind, and one tends to justify the fault finding. And sometimes those who are in managerial positions, responsible positions, who definitely have a service and a responsibility of trying to serve others, help others, improve. And one may have to find faults and help others improve. But sometimes one could justify the fault finding when it is arising out of envy rather than as a result of a service attitude. And so sometimes we may be finding faults with others, speaking about the faults, gossiping with others about others' faults. We may be doing all that and justifying it, saying that this discussion is something which is very essential for the moment, for serving others, for helping others. So if actually it may be out of envy, but one may be justifying it. So Raghunath Das Goswami, he says that when one is doing such an activity of justifying envy, justifying the fault finding, and thinking that actually such a discussion is purifying, is necessary, it is like taking bath in ass's urine. So who gets purified by taking bath in ass's urine? It's most contaminating. But one imagines that one is getting purified, but actually one is simply contaminating oneself. One is simply putrefying oneself by such fault finding and such gossip and such discussions. And so therefore, a Vaishnav, he never takes pleasure in such unnecessary fault finding and such discussions. And so the Srimad Bhagavatam is describing that such discussions which are not Krishna conscious, which don't help ourselves in our Krishna consciousness, which don't help others in Krishna consciousness, that is only like a pilgrimage of crows. So the crows, they take great delight where there's garbage, where there's unnecessary things. That is where they take great delight. So the Srila Prabhupada explains there are the crow class men and the swan class men. The swans don't delight in such places. The swans delight only where there is the crystal clear waters, where beautiful lotuses are growing. That is where the swans delight in. And similarly, the Paramahamsas, the swan-like men, and that is what the Srimad Bhagavatam is meant for, such Paramahamsas. And so therefore, the devotees, they are like the swans. They don't take pleasure in such activities and such discussions. So we find that Gopal Chapel, he could not tolerate the prestige of Srivastava. What did he do? In order to blaspheme him, in order to reduce his prestige as a great devotee, he arranged for this paraphernalia of Durga worship. Some meat and wine and all of the paraphernalia for Durga worship. He placed it in front of Srivas Thakur's house at night. And the next morning, when Srivas Thakur woke up, he came out of his house and he saw all this paraphernalia for Durga worship. How Srivas Thakur responded to that is also something which is very exemplary and something which we can learn from. So how to deal with envious people as a Vaishnav. So when Srivas Thakur saw that, he did not get the slightest angry. He did not think, who is this person who dared to do such a thing? He didn't respond with envy. As Srila Prabhupada writes in the purport to Bhagavad Gita, 12th chapter, verse number 13, 14, where Lord Krishna is speaking about the qualities of one who is dear to him. Begins with Adveshta Sarvabhutana, Adveshta, no dvesha, no envy. That is the quality of a devotee. That's the quality of one who wants to become dear to the Supreme Lord. In that purport, Srila Prabhupada writes a very important statement. He says, a devotee does not become his enemy's enemy. Somebody may be inimical towards a devotee, but a devotee does not consider that person his enemy, because a devotee thinks that that person is behaving inimically towards me because of my own past karma, because of my own past misdeeds. That is why that person is behaving like that with me. So he doesn't become inimical towards him, though that other person may be inimical towards me. In that connection, there's a beautiful pastime of Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada in 1968 was in Montreal. And it was at that time that His Holiness Gopal Krishna Goswami Maharaj began to visit the temple and was taking association of devotees. So there was another Indian person, Mr. Chatterjee, who was also coming to the temple. And so so Srila Prabhupada came to the Montreal temple. And so Gopal Krishna Maharaj invited this Mr. Chatterjee also to come. And so they were hearing Srila Prabhupada's lectures. Once, Srila Prabhupada was invited to a church to speak to the sisters and nuns and brothers and all the Christians basically in the church. So Gopal Krishna Maharaj and Mr. Chatterjee, they also went. And after the lecture, when Srila Prabhupada asked for questions, this Mr. Chatterjee, he was so upset and he started challenging Srila Prabhupada and saying, Swamiji, why have you come to this church to give this lecture? Are you trying to convert the Christians into Hindus? Very challenging. The devotees were very angry at this person. Srila Prabhupada remained calm. And after the lecture, Srila Prabhupada, so the devotees, they were telling Srila Prabhupada, this man was so offensive, why you didn't say anything? So Srila Prabhupada said, it's all right. Later, when Srila Prabhupada was leaving Montreal, Srila Prabhupada actually told Gopal Krishna Maharaj to call Mr. Chatterjee to speak to him. And the devotee said, Prabhupada, but Srila Prabhupada, why? He was so envious, he was so offensive. Why do you want to meet him? Srila Prabhupada said something very instructive. He said, no, maybe in my past life, I did something to him. Therefore, now in this life, he's behaving like this with me. That was Srila Prabhupada's response. And then, so they called Mr. Chatterjee. Srila Prabhupada spoke to him very cordially, very wonderfully, and blessed him. That's Vaishnava. And that's how Srila Prabhupada captured the hearts of so many people by his wonderful Vaishnava qualities. Similar was the behavior of Srivas Thakur when he saw all this paraphernalia for Durga worship in front of his house. Srivas Thakur called all the neighboring people and told them, just see what I am doing. I am a hypocrite. I'm simply pretending to be a devotee of Lord Krishna, but just see what I am doing. I'm no devotee at all. That was Srivas Thakur's response. Of course, none of the people believed that, and they simply cleaned everything up and nobody believed. But we can see how Srivas Thakur responded. He did not get angry. He did not respond with envy towards Gopal Chapter. Rather, he simply tolerated, not just tolerated, but with genuine humility, he responded. But so the Vaishnava is ready to tolerate. The Vaishnava doesn't respond with envy and anger. But Krishna cannot tolerate the envy towards a devotee. And so the result, Gopal Chapal had severe leprosy. He had to leave the village. He was staying on the banks of the Ganges as a beggar, suffering so much. Years later, after Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu took sannyas and came back to Kulia, that's Navdweep, Gopal Chapal went to Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu, fell at his feet and begged him, "My dear Lord, please, please excuse me, relieve me of this suffering." Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu said, "What? Relieve you of the suffering? This is only the beginning of suffering. How will you tolerate the suffering when you are put into the Kumbhipak hell? How will you tolerate that?" In this way, Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu severely chastised Gopal Chapal and rejected him. But of course, finally Mahaprabhu told him, if you want to be relieved of your suffering, go and beg forgiveness from Srimad Thakur, whom you offended. So that is the result of envy. One simply has to suffer so much due to that envy. And so therefore, we find in all these examples, we find that when there is envy towards somebody else, when there's envy towards a Vaishnava, then the result is we ourselves suffer. The Vaishnava, the other Vaishnava may not be so much affected, may not feel so much offended, but Krishna doesn't tolerate. And as a result, we have to suffer. So this is just one example we have discussed. And there are so many more, but I think so our time is up for today. So, we will stop at this point and we will continue our discussions in the next class on Thursday. All right. So can we close for today? And if you have some questions, maybe we can take next time. Is it all right? So whoever is the host can kindly give us permission.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu, thank you for the wonderful class. There's still some questions. I see hands raised up.
Okay, can we take some questions? Okay, fine.
Yes, of course.
Yes, Namrata.
Yes, Prabhuji, actually, as you said, yes, the way we have to handle when we are at the end of enviousness, but sometimes we may be a victim of something very severe, like, physical or mental abuse for many years. So should we speak or just tolerate, considering it as a karma?
Okay.
And it could be from an authority, and, we are not in a position to, actually do something about it.
Okay, fine. Thank you for the question. So, of course, as Vaishnavas, as devotees, definitely a devotee understands that whatever is happening in one's own life is a result of one's own past misdeeds. In that connection, of course, since many of you are Bhakti Vaibhav students, you may recollect that conversation between Dharma in the form of a bull and Parikshit Maharaj. So when Parikshit Maharaj asked the bull, who was being hit by Kali personified in the form of a king, So Parikshit Maharaj asked him, so who has caused this mutilation? Who has caused this trouble to you? And what was Dharma's reply? So Dharma just said that different philosophers have different understandings of what is the cause of suffering. Some say it is material nature, some say it is atoms, some say it is one's own karma. So different philosophers say different things. Oh, king, you decide for yourself. So Dharma left it to Maharaj Parikshit to decide. So Dharma in the form of bull never pointed out any particular person as the cause, even though it was absolutely crystal clear that it was Kali who was causing the trouble. And then Parikshit Maharaj responds by saying, yes, you are truly Dharma personified because you understand the finer intricacies of the practice of Dharma. You perfectly know that one who points out to the perpetrator of crime gets the same destination as the perpetrator of the crime. And therefore, you have not pointed out to anyone. So, Srila Prabhupada explains in this purpose that yes, we know the famous verse, Brahmaji tattenu kampam susamikshimano bunjan evatma pratam vipakam ridva vapuvir vidanamaste jivata yomukti pariksudha. So, a devotee thinks that it is atma kritam vipakam, it is a result of my own past misdeeds that I am put into the suffering condition. At the same time, philosophically, we understand this. Of course, it's not so easy to practice. But at the same time, this Gurujan Prabhu explains in his book, Unveiling His Lotus Feet. So he explains that just like if somebody is coming to attack me with a stick, then definitely I have to do the needful. I have to do the needful. But maybe that person is more powerful than me. He may catch hold of me. He may still beat me, though I'm trying to escape. At that time, so one has to understand, one has to do the needful, but at the same time, one has to understand the consequences are a result of one's own mistakes or whatever may be the reason. Krishna knows. How much do I know? I know simply a small dot on the line of infinity. What I know is so limited. I don't even know everything about this life, what to speak of unlimited past lives. And so therefore, Krishna knows why something is happening in my life. So, but at the same time, we have to do the needful. We have to do what is practical. Srila Prabhupada gives the example that just like we know that someplace there is a pandemic, we are all experiencing the pandemic. And so if we know that there is some place where there are a lot of cases, the infection is really spreading fast, then we take care not to go to that place. Not that we think Krishna will protect, so doesn't matter, let me go. Of course, if somebody has some important service, that's something else. But in general, Srila Prabhupada gives this example. If we know that there is a place where there's a danger, then one doesn't go to that place. So that means I can't be foolish. I have to be intelligent and I have to do the needful. Srila Prabhupada fought like a lion in the Juhu case. We all know that, against Mr. Nair. Srila Prabhupada didn't think that, oh, what to do, it is karma, Mr. Nair wants to cheat us, it's all fine. He didn't think like that. He did his best. He fought up to his utmost limits, even though all the other devotees had given up. They thought, we can't fight with this person. He has so many contacts, so many politicians and gundas, and we can't match him. Better give it up, give up the fight, give up the land. We will go somewhere else and live peacefully. But Srila Prabhupada was not ready for that. He fought. Why? For Krishna. So yes. So we have to do the needful. But at the same time, if the consequences are still against us, in spite of whatever attempts we make, in spite of the efforts we take, in spite of that, still, if the consequences turn out to be against us, then we accept that, yes, this is Krishna's plan. But we have to do the needful.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Just to complete the answer, and just like we read in the first canto about Bhishma Dev. Bhishma Dev, when he saw the Pandavas, as Bhishma Dev was lying on the bed of arrows, Bhishma Dev said, Aho anyayam, aho kashtam. So much injustice. Even though you're all the sons of Dharma personified, even though the Supreme Lord was present amongst you. And then Bhishma Dev says, who can understand the plan of the Lord? Even the greatest of philosophers cannot understand. So we have to do the needful, but ultimately whatever happens, then we accept it as the plan of the Lord. Is that okay?
Yes, Prabhuji. Thank you so much, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna. Do we have time for some more questions? Or?
Hare Krishna, there's one more hand up, so.
Okay, fine. Please go ahead, Anarpita.
Thank you so much, Prabhuji. Thank you so much. Prabhuji, my question is there. It's a personal question that I am asking in this platform. In my life, I used to love so much to a devotee. The devotee is really very nice. Still, he is very nice. But somehow or the other, there was a very great incident was there. So somehow some disturbance has come there, and due to that enviousness come in my mind, and I was thinking why the devotee has done such a big thing, and I have served a lot to this devotee years and years, and this is the result now. So after the passing time, the situation is just improving, but actually we have together services. I have left that place even because we are in a big group, and he's also leading one center, and I'm also having the same responsibility. I'm leading another center. So but after some time, I just improve this situation by the mercy of Krishna. But somehow or the other, there is something little bit of a mistake or other thing comes from his side. Again, this problem just come up. I try to just cope up that thing, but I'm not always success. But just the thing comes in from my inner. I just try to just stop them. I'm not completely able to control that things. I just pray only for that, and I try to control my bad emotions, but I'm failure. In failure in the sense, I don't express, but it is there. I have no other thing to pray only and just bear that things. This I do. If there is something better, please help me.
Hare Krishna. I think so. As devotees, we all go through different situations like this, and definitely some heartburning and some disturbances continue to remain because of the past, and so therefore we don't know what are the details, but in any case, whatever they may be, it is always best in such situations to consult senior Vaishnavas to be able to exactly deal with the situation. And And ultimately, as you rightly said, yes, we have to pray so that we understand, or we can try to understand, or we get the strength to see the hand of the Lord in everything that's happening. So actually, one of the causes of envy is not being able to see the hand of the Lord in whatever that's happening. So somebody has more fame than me, somebody has more opulences than me, somebody has more facilities than me. Why? Because Krishna has awarded that to him. But we become envious because we cannot see the hand of Krishna in whatever is that's happening. We think, no, why? Why he has more? Why I don't have? We fail to understand that ultimately Krishna is the ultimate controller. Krishna is the ultimate enjoyer. It's Krishna who's awarding something more to that person, something more to me, something less to me, something less to somebody else. It's Krishna who's orchestrating the whole thing. So if we can just see the hand of Krishna in everything that's happening, then we can be peaceful. Therefore, the peace formula, as Krishna himself has spoken in the last verse of the 5th chapter, Bhoktaram yagatapasam sarvalokameshwaram suridam sarvabhutanam kyatpamam shantam vichati. This is the peace formula, as Srila Prabhupada said. So if one understands that Krishna is the ultimate controller, the proprietor of all the universes, he is the ultimate enjoyer, that means anything that's happening in this world has to happen by the sanction of Krishna, correct? Without the sanction of Krishna, nothing can happen in this world. As the saying goes, not a blade of grass can move without the will of the Supreme Lord. So if that is the case, okay, Krishna is doing everything. But at the same time, it said he's also Suridham Sarvabhutanam. He's the best, well-wishing friend of every living entity. That means he's perfectly in control. Whatever is happening under his sanction. But at the same time, whatever he's doing is for the ultimate benefit of every living entity, because he is the best well-wishing friend. If he is the best well-wishing friend, how can he allow anything wrong to happen to anyone? A friend will not desire something bad for anyone. So Krishna is the best well-wishing friend, and he is the ultimate controller. So how can anything wrong happen without his sanction and without his well-wishes? So if we just understand this, there can be Shanti. There can be perfect peace. I may not understand the details of why exactly it's happening, but if we are assured of this fact that I don't understand, but Krishna knows, Krishna understands what is best for me, what is best for my purification, what is best for my progress. He knows best. If one simply has faith in this, one can be peaceful. And of course, as far as practicalities go, one can take guidance from some saints. Does it help?
Thank you so much, Puji. So can I get your number?
Okay, maybe at the end of the next class we can.
Okay, okay,
fine. Okay. Thank you all very much. Can we conclude now?
Yes, from my question is
from the VIHE side, is it okay?
Hare Krishna, Vamsivadan Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you for this. This is very torturing topic. I remember many years ago, the MVT in Vrindavan was under construction. And that time, we used to live very simply. It must have been in the 90s, maybe. We used to live very simply. And then we saw this MVT coming up, looking so posh, So, and so one day I was with some visiting devotees from Pune, actually. And So they asked me, what is this? And I said, yeah, this is building up. We don't know what this is to be. And somehow I said, this is, we know that actually, even though they say it's for devotees, but it's only going to be for devotees who have money, who are rich. Because this is not going to serve any of us because we don't have money, and they are building something so-called for the devotee community, but it's going to be very expensive. And so anyway, and the devotee just said, Krishna ne diya unhone na. He said that Krishna has given them. Those who have money, Krishna has given them. I always remember this. I didn't feel like extreme envy in my heart, but I realized, yeah, after all, why do I bother? Krishna has given them. We have to accept. So it's as you say, accepting Krishna's plan, Krishna's will, Krishna's arrangement. Krishna's arrangement is there. And being satisfied with what he has given us. I think this not accepting, worse than not accepting what Krishna has given to others. And envy comes also from not accepting what Krishna has given us and not being grateful for what he has given us. Because, and we get only what we deserve, as you said. So thank you so much, Vamsivadan, for bravely presenting this topic, and we are looking forward to the second session.
Hare Krishna. Thank you for allowing me to render some service. Thank you so much.
You're most welcome. Hare Krishna.
Srila Prabhupada.